We were always fascinated by this idea of passive income and generating significant wealth. A lot of wealth is generated through real estate. So Liz and I have done it completely differently. We've done it through buying and selling businesses.
Meet Matt and Liz Rod, online business experts and Australia's top website investors and digital educators.
With nearly 30 years in mergers and acquisitions, they transformed from zoologists to multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs. Now, they are helping people to learn digital skills and build profitable online businesses.
When you work for corporate, guys have the golden handcuffs. You're paid a lot, but you are working 5 till 9. That bit sucks in terms of wealth creation because you all think you're rich because you're earning significant money, but you don't get any assets out of that. So you could slave away at that for 20 or 30 years and you get fired. And what do you get?
What you guys are doing around buying and selling online business.
When you think about it, what we do online, the actual business model is really this simple. It is literally like it's buy, renovate, and sell. That's it.
How do you at least resolve conflicts?
Ooh.
Hello, I'm Aaron Pang, the host of Transformative Purpose podcast. About a few years ago, I started spreading inspirations and positive messages through my books, podcasts, and conversations with inspiring leaders. If you also feel like our world needs more positive energy and you've been inspired by our content, please consider subscribing and join the next conversation. I would like to thank today's sponsor for this episode, Max Luxury Tea. Over here, you can see 3 of their unique flavors. We have Earl Grey, decaf breakfast, and also cucumber and watermelon tea. What I love about this company is that 100% of their products are biodegradable, from their tea bags, strengths, all the way to their packaging. If you'd like to try their tea, I'll also stick a link in the description so you can order directly from their website. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Likewise, really looking forward to this conversation and learning more about you and what you guys do.
Yep.
How did you get into the online world, Matt?
It's a long story, Aaron. It's a good one, though, for your listeners. Talk about passion business. This is what, we're literally living the dream. I think probably like a lot of your listeners, we were always fascinated by this idea of passive income and generating significant wealth. And here in Australia, you guys can probably hear it in my accent. We're from Australia, and it's like around the world anywhere. A lot of wealth is generated through real estate. So Liz and I have done it completely differently. We've done it through buying and selling businesses, and the way we figured that out, well, we need to step one step further back too. We met at uni, and we were studying zoology. Would you believe? So red kangaroos. That's what we're experts at. But we very quickly realised that was not going to give us freedom of either time or money. And we both come from the country. And one of our biggest values was always freedom. So when we got together, we realized, hey, we want to have a way to live out in the country. That's why we were studying zoology. We thought zoology, you'd be in the country. Didn't happen that way. You're in a lab normally, and you're stuck to government grants. So we said, no, not doing that. And we bought our first business, and with the help of friends and family. And it was a manufacturing business, small manufacturing business. We absolutely loved it, got addicted to business very quickly. We read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all those great books back then, totally self-taught. And we realized this can work for us. This is our Rich Dad, Poor Dad style business where if we can systemize this, we can export, and it's not leveraged to us time-wise. And I think ever since that moment, we've used business for not only for cash flow, but for freeing up our time. So we never wanted to work 9 to 5 because you max out. If you're swapping time for money, you max out at some point, whereas business gave us our leverage. We could work 5 days or 3 days a week and still earn mega bucks, depending on if we were smart and did things right. So I guess as scientists, the one thing that scientists gave us was a curious mind, and we just figured out business. It was literally like, a puzzle. And we hung out with lots of high net worth entrepreneurs and bought and sold businesses, and we had an absolute ball. It's not been easy. I'm making it sound like lots of fun. It's been 30 years we've been doing this, but we absolutely loved every minute. And to this day, I still view business as exactly what I just said, the ultimate leverage in terms of your time and also wealth as well. But I know real estate's good, but we're not real estate fans. I'm not interested in real estate at all. It's always been about business for us.
I want to ask you about Rich Dad Poor Dad. I also read that book and you brought it up. What was the key learning from you for people who have not read that book?
Business rocks. If you want to generate wealth, you've got to, if you want to be rich, like working a secure job sucks. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, should I? But I'm an entrepreneur, it doesn't suck. That's actually the wrong thing. Let's scratch that. It's working a traditional 9 to 5, or we call it 5 to 9 these days. Most of our clients work extreme hours, and we have friends that do that. And like yourself, Aaron, you would know what this is like. When you work for corporate, you guys have the golden handcuffs. You paid a lot, but you are working 5 till 9, and that bit sucks in terms of wealth creation, because you all think you're rich because you're earning significant money, but you don't get any assets out of that. So you could slave away at that for 20 or 30 years and you get fired. And what do you get? Bit of super, and if you've managed to squirrel away some money. Whereas you work your way at a business for 30 years, multiple businesses, and buy and sell them, you have multiple assets, cash generating assets after that, at the very least, when you put in, if you're doing well. So business, my takeaway from Robert Kiyosaki's book is that I think a 9 to 5 job where you're swapping time for money in this day and age is very, very dangerous. So we read that book back in the late 90s, and the true way to wealth, you need, like Robert said, you need leverage. You need to get into that quadrant where you're in the entrepreneur side, where you're not swapping time for money. Instead, you're creating an asset and you're creating cash flow that you can trade and that you can add value to. And also, in that book, he said the thing that we love the most was, you don't just want businesses where you're a slave to them, where you're working the equivalent of 9 to 5 anyway. You want businesses that give you leverage so that you don't. So remember in his book back then, he was talking about buying laundromats and car washes, because you can put in a jockey to run them and you just buy more and more as you get more successful. Well, these days we do that with online businesses. And so that's my take-home point, is you can get leverage through owning multiple businesses or scaling businesses that you just can't get in a 9 to 5 job. And I think that's really important. It's even more important in this day and age.
For people who are thinking about next step or they're in transition, you at least, the love of your life, you guys met at university, and it sounded like you guys had your life all planned out. Zoology, even went into the industry.
Yep.
What was the transitioning like for you guys? And what did it take to make that leap of faith to say, I want to buy a manufacturing business and I want to go into an entirely different field?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's funny, Aaron. We teach, you know who our most common client is these days? Clients that are transitioning out of their careers. And now your question just made me think, gee, isn't it funny how the universe works? Here we are teaching that, and you've just asked me, how did we do it? And this is where, I'll be honest, we need to be aware that for Liz and I, we're big risk takers. So our risk profile is very different to everyone else. So when we were young, when we met, we came out of uni, luckily it didn't take me much to convince Liz to go on this journey of becoming an entrepreneur. And for me, it was really, really easy because I grew up poor and I was very driven by money. I wanted to be wealthy. I really dislike not growing up with no money. It was physically painful for me. And so I made a vow with myself, when I finish school, I'm going to figure this out. And I had no idea how to do it. I grew up in an area where there were no millionaires. I had to move into Sydney, Australia's biggest capital, and I had to network and meet millionaires, and that inspired me. And the ones I were meeting were in business. And even at that point, I still didn't know how I was going to do it. It took me, if you're listening to this, I was not an overnight success or anything. I didn't even start my first business till I was in my mid-20s. I was a late starter. So Liz is younger than me. My first business actually was a personal trainer at a gym. So, that was just a little thing to put me through uni. It basically paid the bills to get through uni. But transitioning for us wasn't particularly difficult because we were young and somewhat stupid and naive. We had no idea. We thought it would be easy, and it just so wasn't. When we bought our first business, so it looked great on the surface, And we took it to an accountant and he said, oh, wow, what a cool business. You should buy this. And it was totally wrong. It was almost going bankrupt. That literally within a few weeks of owning it, we realized, we got a major problem here. All the clients were about to dump it. There was all sorts of problems with it, which didn't get picked up in due diligence, which to this day is why we're so passionate about teaching people do smart due diligence, because we don't trust accountants to do good due diligence. Understandably, the accountants can't pick up everything. So I think it set us on a 30-year journey of figuring out how do you do proper due diligence on businesses. And so our transition was, on the one hand, easy mindset-wise because we wanted to do it, but very difficult practically because the business was almost going bankrupt and we had to just jump in the deep end and learn everything ourselves about business. And the number one thing we did was actually learn sales. But I didn't know how to fix a business, but we didn't even know how to sell either. But we just read one book, which was, I bought it from St. Vincent's de Paul for 60 cents, from an op shop. It was called What They Don't Teach You at Business Harvard School by, what's his name, McCormack. And I've still got it. It's just sitting over there. And it's all folded edges, it's faded, and it's got fluoro pen all through it. And basically my take-home point from that was, if you want to turn around any business, you got to just sell more. And so, all right, how do you do that? So then we just read books about sales, and the rest is history. That's what kind of turned it around. And so the transition period for us was tough. So I know what your listeners are going through. If your listeners are earning significant income in the corporate world, I'll tell you now, listeners, it's going to be mindset-wise, it's going to be hard to give that up. Now, that's what we help people do. And we don't recommend doing what Liz and I are doing, which is jumping into the deep end and quitting your job. That's not a smart idea because mindset-wise, you'll find it too difficult. I think what's better, Aaron, is for your listeners' sake, is transition over time. We say to people, you touched on something, what was your vision? We get people to form a 2, 3, and 5 year vision for their transition. Now, some people are totally burnt out and they need to do it within 12 months, but not always the best move in our experience, because we've been coaching people through this now for, 15 years, maybe, how to transition out of careers. So it's a really, gosh, Aaron, we could do a whole lesson on how to transition out of a highly paid career. It's one of my passion things, but that I think I've covered the main ground there.
Yeah. You touch on the sales skills.
Yep.
How does Matt sell? How can we sell better?
How can we sell better is really good question, is literally learning, just getting out there in the field and doing it, practicing. So you need a reason to sell and you need a good product to sell. But we read a lot of books. In the old day, when we first learned how to sell, we learned through the American salespeople because there was no one here in Australia really teaching it. And we just listened to the old cliches. I don't know if you've heard of them, but, Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, just go and Google those guys. They're a bit old-fashioned. They're really nice guys. They're not like modern presenters, there's no swearing or anything. And they're very, they wear suits and stuff, but really nice, genuine guys. And they have really good, I guess you call them fundamental sales techniques that they use, very American, but it works really well here in Australia. It'll work really well throughout Southeast Asia as well, because it's consultative sales process. So for us, we've always found that basically asking someone, what do they need help in? Where do they, trying to solve problems for someone, finding out what do they have, what would they want to change, and how can we help you with that? And, oh, by the way, our product could help you do this. And that's basically, we learned a lot of that from Tom Hopkins. He calls it his needs analysis, just being very consultative. It works in any industry, and it's funny. I'll just jump in there.
Yeah,
it all sounds face to face, but if you're listening to this, it's really important. So our background is like these days we buy and sell like online businesses. It's funny, Aaron. We use exactly the same process online, even on sales pages, on the way we get people to a call to action on a website. It's all that needs analysis that we learned and perfected all those years ago doing face-to-face sales in business, in bricks and mortar businesses. Except now, of course, we can reach a global audience of, tens of millions of people within 24 hours, 24/7, non-stop. We don't have to talk to anyone. The message is out there on the internet. So there are no barriers for us anymore. So that's what we love about sales online. There's just no barriers. You don't have to actually talk to anyone anymore.
Let's shift gear a bit and let's talk about the online business and what you're seeing in the industry. I first ventured into online business about 20 years ago. I was still in college and got a bit of luck, and I was building e-commerce businesses. Even I think just when eBay and was coming out and Craigslist was going down.
Yep.
Now we've seen a lot of changes with AI, right?
Changes.
Fundamentally, with what you guys are doing around buying and selling online business, has that changed over the last 10, 20 years, or do the principles still work?
So the principles very much still work. The principles are the same with bricks and mortar businesses. It's just they're online and they're on steroids. Like everything's amped up. So the principles go back even hundreds of years or thousands of years. Human commerce. Businesses have always been bought and sold in modern history times. And so the fundamentals of what we do online are still exactly the same as what we did with bricks and mortar business, just everything's a lot quicker now. So when you think about it, what we do online, the actual business model is really this simple. It is literally like, for your listeners who've done maybe real estate, it's buy, renovate, and sell. That's it. So it's like buying real estate. We're not buying, the best house or anything like that. We're trying to buy the worst house in the best street. So we're buying rundown websites that have been a bit neglected, or there's renovation opportunities. So we obviously need to understand that. And then we're trying to buy them at a good price. We're doing full due diligence on them, just like you would with a commercial property or with a traditional business. And then once we get them, we renovate them, we fix them up, we try and improve the rents, we try and fix up. We don't want to rewire the whole house or rebuild it or anything like that. It's just simple fix-ups. We leave the site fundamentally as is, but we build on it. We might renovate the look completely and stuff. And then basically we hold it for the cash flow, or we sell at a higher price. Now, the real gold is buying small sites and building them up significantly and selling out to the big corporates for millions of dollars. That's the big play too when you want to go to it. So that is the fundamental business model. We followed that from day one when we first got online in 2008, 2009, and we were buying websites before the website brokerage firms existed. You know where we bought our first website? You just mentioned it. We bought our first website on eBay because there's nowhere else to buy websites back then. I wouldn't recommend doing that these days, by the way. But yeah, so the fundamentals haven't changed, but your question is, have things evolved and changed in those 15 years that we've been online? Absolutely. Particularly in the last couple of years, it's gone crazy, especially with AI. That's completely changed how things work. But the fundamentals are still the same. We're still teaching the same fundamental stuff that we taught 10 years ago. It's just that it's more important to get bits right now. Now, there's massive opportunities out there because the good news is, Aaron, there's a lot more websites now than there was 15 years ago. That's a lot more opportunities to buy rundown websites and fix them up. And AI helps us do that a lot better. So AI means we don't need as much staff anymore. It's easier to, it's quicker to create content or to draft up content. If English isn't your first language, AI is absolutely brilliant. That's helped out a lot of our clients now. If you're not good at writing or not good at doing sales copy, guess what? AI absolutely rocks at that. So we don't use AI for generating what's called SEO content, but we certainly, coming back to that sales skill, a lot of people don't have sales skills, and we used to have to teach that. Well, guess what now? AI is the perfect model for writing sales letter because it's very formulaic how sales letters go together and they work, and AI is perfect for that. So it's been an absolute a game changer in terms of tools that we have at our disposal. It's about having the knowledge, though, of bringing all that together into a business strategy. That's the important part.
I love the real estate analogy that you gave out and how easy it is for me to relate to what you guys are trying to do. There are a couple of keywords that you mentioned in that analogy. You mentioned about, finding the worst house in the bad street and try to give it a bit of renovation, give it a bit of facelift, right? What does bad street mean in the online world? Yeah, and how do you spot? Yeah, and how do you spot a bad house with potential?
Yep. So the best street really. So two parts to that. Think of a website as, and if you're listening to this should be really exciting to you. Websites are not just online brochures anymore, or just these ephemeral things that you go and visit and look at. Websites are actual assets. They're the equivalent of physical real estate, literally. It's just that they happen to be virtual. They're sitting on, they're electrons, but we view them as literal online real estate. And so you think of the domain name, so the URL the address that you type in, that's literally like the street address. So, cats.com, that's the street address. The site that's on there, like all the files and how it looks, that's kind of like the house. That's the bit that we renovate. So we're owning two parts. So we're owning the address and we're owning the infrastructure that sits on there. And the good news about that is it makes it really simple what we do to it. And so the best street, often we view that as, what are good money-making niches? What are the high-quality niches where we can make good money? So all these assets we're talking about, by the way, I should qualify something, are not e-commerce. So Aaron, I know your background is e-commerce. We do none of that. Because of our background in manufacturing and wholesale import businesses, all your money's tied up in physical inventory. We don't want that. That's why we got online. We were sick of it. It holds you back as an entrepreneur. You're always forking out money for more inventory. All our sites are purely just advertising websites or affiliate websites. So we just make money off ads.
Can I ask you a quick question? Drop shipping, does that still work?
It's in between. Drop shipping's not bad because you don't have to have the physical inventory and you drive the leads to the drop shipper. So that can actually, that's kind of a nice in between one, halfway between. We generally, full disclosure, we generally don't buy drop shippers though, because you still are responsible to the end client. Most of the sites we have, we don't deal with any end clients. We don't talk to clients. We don't really, we're not selling physical product. We're just an affiliate for products. So we recommend people through. So what we're looking for is the valuable niches, what we call the blue chip niches. And typically they are passion niches, simple little sites that you would never think make that much money. So gardening sites, golfing sites, how to play guitar, anything to do with pets, anything to do with health, wealth, and happiness. They're our three favorite niches because people are always looking up information. They want answers to questions. So literally what our sites are about is answering people's questions. How do I get richer? How do I lose weight? How do I stay happy? How do I, have a happy relationship? Or how do I educate myself in a passion niche that I'm interested in? Like, or how do I look after my animals? Or, dog training I love the gardening niche. It's a really classic because some of our clients have been really successful there. And I'll give you an idea of worst house in the best street. So clients of ours, Nathan and Alexa, they're laptop lifestylers. They live, at the time, they were living in Thailand. And they found this Australian gardening site. Now, they're not gardeners. They're a young couple. They're working off a laptop. They have a portfolio of these semi-passive websites. They found a site on gardening. They know it's a good niche. The guy had neglected it. It had been around for 14 years. So you imagine this is an online asset. He didn't see any value in it. He just blogged about gardening and he had a bit of a following. He sold it to them for $400 US, $400. It's next to nothing, right? It's like the cheapest thing ever because he didn't see any value in it. He was just going to close it down and walk away. That site now, fast forward to today, it's just one of their sites. It generates $4,000 a month net profit a month, and it costs them $400. That thing's worth nearly 200 odd grand. So that was an example of rundown house in a really good street. And they just came along, did a makeover, and then they've worked on it. They've had to put some money into it. They've invested some money into the fix-up, which is mainly content. They don't write the content. They don't know anything about gardening. They just hire outsourcers on places like Upwork. And, that's what they do. So they own multiple sites like that. And that's what we try and get people to do. So they used to work full-time jobs, and they've been able to transition out over the years to now owning a portfolio of sites like that. And I think it's a really good example of, you've got to ask yourself, what other rundown websites are out there on the planet that people have run for 10 years? There's an underlying value there, just like with physical real estate, because it's got 10 years worth of history in Google, right? What else is out there? There's millions, tens of millions. There's actually, I think the stat is there's like 3 or 4 billion websites online at the moment, but 1.5 billion active websites. That's a lot of websites to look at for potentially buying. So you find these rundown ones, fix them up, and then hopefully sell them to a big player. So that site, they will sell that out to a much bigger corporate one day here in Australia.
Yeah. And in terms of geography, which countries would people be more likely to find these rundown websites? You mentioned Australia a few times. Do they focus on the down under?
No, not at all. America. So that's very rare that you get. We hardly ever buy websites in Australia, same as Nathan Alexa. The majority of our sites are .coms, so based in America. So there's no barriers. So the only reason why too, so for someone listening to this, if you're multilingual, you can buy websites in other countries like, say, Southeast Asia would be amazing. Look at the population. As long as there's the money, as long as people are spending money on ads and there's a big population, you can go there. But I don't speak, I'm not multilingual, so I can't go to Asia because it's very difficult for me to do what's called the keyword research. And that's where most of our efforts go into, is the keyword research and the content research and the due diligence. So for us, our next logical market where the biggest population is America, 300 odd million people. Believe me, if I could do anything in Asia, I would, but because there's a lot of money there, people neglect it. It's probably easy pickings if you know what you're doing in Asia. But you've got to know what you're doing, guys. So don't just rush out there and buy any old website, because you won't have any idea what you're doing with it. But does that answer that question? Mainly, yeah. We just, from day one, we went to America. There's no borders with this. It's not like exporting. So we used to export to America. Oh man, it was hard. It's just so difficult. Whereas with a website, literally, we buy a website and we're making money the next day. Like money turns up in the bank account the next day from America. It is awesome. There's no barriers. Don't have to talk to anyone. 24/7, 300 million people at our, potentially. It does not get better than that when you come from a bricks and mortar business that used to export to that country. It's awesome.
You mentioned about keyword research. I wonder if we can unpack that. What do you actually mean by keyword research?
How much time do we have, Aaron? It's my favorite topic. Well, after due diligence, website due diligence, we could be here for hours talking about that. We're going to have to do a class on it. There's a lot to it. So it's actually the really creative part. I know it sounds, it kind of sounds nerdy and geeky, and it is a little bit like keyword research. You are kind of looking at analytics a bit, but everyone that we teach this process to, whether they're engineers or high-level lawyers or high-level project managers or they're more creative types, everyone says, at the end of the day, like I'm thinking of Nathan and Alexa in particular, they're a young couple. Guess what their favorite thing in life now is? It sounds nerdy and geeky, is keyword research, because it just makes you so much money. So basically, though, what we're doing is, say we hear about a really interesting niche, or we see a website in gardening or pets or whatever. You don't have to know anything about that niche, but what we do is we jump onto Google and we look at it, and we start looking at all the gardening sites. And then we go down the rabbit hole. We look at, the rarer words, keyword research. So basically we're looking at the words that people would type into Google to get answers to their questions. And that's the best way to answer that. So it's a lot of fun, because what we've got to think about is, well, what are people typing into Google around gardening? Or especially an Australian native gardening site. I know nothing about it. So that's the fun part. So you might spend, a weekend researching. If you know nothing about Australian native gardens, just that's what that website was that Nathan and Alexa bought. they would have spent about a weekend researching everything. And after the weekend, you probably know more than 95% of people on the planet about it. Because there's tools you can use now, like there's free tools like Google Analytics, Google Trends, awesome tool, by the way, Google Trends. Just go and Google it. There's all sorts of keyword research tools you can use to help you go down the rabbit hole. But the main one is looking at other websites in the niche and figuring out who's making money, where are they making money, and how could I renovate the website in the future when I own it. That's a lot of fun. And you want to know something really interesting, Aaron? Coming back to one of your earlier questions.
Yep.
These days, literally, this is new, literally in just the last few months. What we're finding is AI now helps us as much as I'm really passionate about getting our clients to spend, I call it a joyous weekend, Aaron, of keyword research. You're going to geek out on it and tell the family, don't disturb me for 6 hours. Guess what? Scarily, for me, AI will do it in about 30 minutes, even less, 5 or 10 minutes. We can just literally program our keyword research process in, and it gives us a thumbnail sketch. So like, it's not super accurate, but it gives us a pretty darn good idea of what used to literally take me 6 hours. Liz, my wife, will do it in 5 to 15 minutes with AI. And it's good enough. And I had to admit to her publicly the other day, okay, I'm happy because I'm a keyword research expert. I said, she randomly picked a topic, just something really obscure. I think pontoon boats or something. I know nothing about it, neither does she. And she did the research within about 15 minutes. And I said, yep, that's good enough to go ahead with. And I go, where's my 6 hours gone? And like, what am I going to do on the weekends now? So
buy more sites.
It's the fun stuff. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun keyword research though. But
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I actually spent a lot of time doing that. In my first job, we had 10 to 20 websites in the portfolio, and I had to figure out a system to monetize those websites. So I remember back in the day, I subscribed to all these keyword tools. You look at the niche, the keywords, how they're doing, where we should place ads, and which publishers will pay us the most in terms of the ads that we're serving to the visitors. So did that for about 6 to 9 months and ended up like 200 times the gross revenue for the company. But
see, Aaron, that's awesome. So so what you just described, anyone listening to this, what Aaron just described, Aaron already knows how to do this. We should do a class together on. That's literally what we teach people, Aaron. So what you've just asked, what you've just described is literally how we renovate websites as well. That's what we're looking for. Well, you mentioned a few things in there. We're looking for better advertising rates or monetization opportunities. We're looking for better keywords that we can. Sometimes we do paid traffic as well, once we've got the numbers working. But we're definitely looking at what are the best keywords to go for optimizing the websites for certain keywords, and what are the best sub niches within the niche that we've got the website in. And it's exactly all that stuff. And well done. See how much fun was that process that you just went through?
Oh, super fun.
It is. How addictive is it? You see, you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
Anyone listening to this, you're going to have to get in on this. It's very addictive, isn't it? Especially if your mind's curious. I think it's a lot of fun, very addictive.
I think that I learned a very important skill that I still try to apply it to my life now. One of the key skills that I learned from there was just doing a lot of A/B testing and doing lots of experiments. Yep. And one of the topics you touched on, having a curious mind, having a scientific mind towards everything. I think the worst blind spot that any one of us could have is like, we don't know what we don't know. But that's not a scary thing, Once you sort of unpack what you don't know, you try to be curious. For me, you try to think more like, a child again. You ask questions. You figure out, what's holding you back. Because I remember at first when we launched into the business, we thought the area that will make us the most of the money will be finance and insurance.
Gotcha.
So we started acquiring a lot of financial websites and insurance websites, but they didn't bring us any revenue at all. They're highly competitive. The keywords are very expensive to bid on.
Yep.
After 9 months of journey, I realized that the category that made us the most money actually came from education. So we started doing a lot of business school websites, your top 10 MBA schools, your top 10 education providers, and that category alone generated 80% of our revenue. But, and it's easier said than done now, but, we managed to arrive at this conclusion after doing, days and days of research, spending money on advertising and doing lots of A/B testing. There was no generative AI back then. Every single experiment was tracked and recorded in Excel.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we've used, Excel, and we share it with our team. We use Google spreadsheets. It's just been awesome. To this day, we still do that. Something you just touched on, really important. I think that's one of the things we call it test and measure. It is so much fun. And online, just if you're listening, what's amazing is because you've got such high volume of customers, so visitors to the website. We're not talking, a shop in the main street where you might get 500 people coming in. We're talking, we get 10,000 visitors a month on some little micro niche thing about Australian gardens. That site, by the way, now gets 80,000 visitors a month. That's a lot of people to test stuff. So the cool thing is online, you can very quickly test things like headlines. Sometimes we've changed headlines and we've upped the conversions by 50%. So you might typically your conversions are 1 to 2% on a sales page. You change the headline and to something that you didn't even think would be good. And now we use AI to test it all the time. AI is so quick and it comes up with better headlines than what we can, because I'm not that great at writing. We'll get 50% more conversions. So we might get the conversions up to 1.5 to 2%, which doesn't sound a lot. But when we're talking 100,000 visitors a month, now we're talking potentially sometimes tens of thousands of dollars to our bottom line just for A/B testing something. And Aaron, here's a really cool renovation that we did. What your example of, you thought it would be the finance industry, but it was education sites. Well, if we go down a bit more granular on that, we typically have that when you buy a bigger website. You will think it's certain pages that are going to make you all the money. And I like to think I'm pretty experienced. I've been doing this for 15 years. How many times have I been wrong where we thought that would be the page? So we had a site that was really big and it had this page that was advertising a free product. And from my sales background, I'm thinking, well, that's never going to make money. But Liz said, no, put the affiliate offer on there and let's see what happens. And I go, no, it won't make money. I was focusing on another part of the website. And anyway, you know where this is leading. We put the affiliate offer on there. It literally doubled. We're talking, it went more than doubled. It went from like $1,000 a month to $3,000 a month just on that one page because we put a better offer on there. And it was for free, a free product. But at the bottom of it, we put a paid option and we started making $3,000 a month. That's passive, doing nothing. Literally, it was just one afternoon, Liz and I were arguing about whether or not we do it. And she said, I'm just going to do it. We went to bed, woke up, and over the next few days, within a week, we realized, okay, that's amazing. And it was just something that I would never have picked. So coming back to your point, and this is the fun thing with websites, and if you're listening to this, I want you to be thinking, this is why there's so much opportunity out there, because people aren't prepared to do all these tests with their websites. Because they're kind of passive, right? They're semi-passive. They have them for 5 or 10 years. They make pretty good money off them. They think things are good. Why would I change it? Whereas we come along, buy it, we start testing everything. Next, we've doubled the revenues. That's how you generate serious wealth in life. Don't be lazy. Get out there and play with the websites.
One of the issues that I've also seen in the market, and I don't know whether you've seen the same thing, over in Australia, is that a lot of big companies or SMEs, they tend to outsource their website maintenance to an agency.
Yep.
And usually agency is not incentivized. Excuse me. Usually agency is not incentivized to help you do loads and load testing.
Awesome point. And I would not do that. We don't teach that at all. So what we do is we teach people to build their own team. So this sounds a little bit different. You got to remember, we're trying to help. What we do is we teach beginners how to transition out of careers, right? So what that means is we've got to give them digital skills. So our way we do that is we suggest, and if you're listening to this, I'm going to be a little bit different to other educators out there. People will say exactly what you said, Aaron. You've got to outsource stuff. We go, nah, do everything yourself first. Don't care. Just sleep less, work late. Learn how to do this stuff yourself first. So then you're in control. And then what you do is you start hiring people to give you the leverage, but you build your own team. I would not so you hire individuals. Don't have to hire them full time. They're just ad hoc. But I wouldn't outsource the renovation of a website to an agency. You're right. They're not incentivized. They'll just treat it as a job. Whereas if you build your own team, it comes from the top down. You've presumably already done the hard yards of renovating a website yourself before, so you know exactly what to do. So you just get your team to do what you do. And you allocate roles as well. At the end of the day, even with our most successful clients who are doing 6 and 7 figures, at the end of the day, I can tell you they're still doing their own keyword research. They're keeping a close eye on the A/B testing, or what affiliate offers they offer, or what are the ads they put on. The good news is, too, it's a lot easier now to test monetization on websites than what it used to be even 5 years ago. You should be doing that sort of stuff yourself. I know it sounds micromanaging or whatever, but it's not. It makes you because you know what's good with websites too, to a degree, done once, done forever. Like once you do dial it in, the monetization side, you don't have to bother. You don't have to touch that once you've tested it a bit, because it's all automated, that bit. It's more the ongoing traffic generation of the website. That's where the gold is. Playing with the monetization is very automated. That's because it's just ad networks or different affiliate offers. There's not much to that. That's with the sort of simple websites we buy.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, I don't know whether you agree with this, I think people should only consider outsourcing once they figure out the system.
Yeah,
right?
That's I think that's so important.
And then you choose to outsource your system selectively.
Yep.
You don't.
Good point.
You don't let everyone know your competitive advantage. But you sort of outsource things that would save you time, so you can have a bit of fun with your family. I have got a family question for you, Matt.
Okay.
You went into this just after your degree with someone that has a similar risk profile.
Yep.
You've got 3 kids, right?
Two.
2 kids. Okay. 2 kids, successful educator, pivoted and doing something entirely different, similar risk profiles, as your wife. That sounded like a disaster for me. How did you manage all your ups and downs over the years? Building businesses, turning businesses around, whether it was a manufacturing business or other online businesses. Yep. How do you balance and make sure you don't get yourself burned out?
Because, okay, I'll say what's in my gut, and we get asked this a lot now that I'm on podcasts and things, and Liz and I don't even think twice about it. We just do it. We work together 24/7, live together, life partners, all that sort of stuff. And people say, how the hell do you do it in business? Big kick butt answer to that is, and my gut feeling is, we both live with intention, and we have a very strong vision of what our future is going to be. And we've always had that from day one. So we were excited when we got together to realize, oh, wow, we share similar values. And then we realized, wow, we can build a life together, or we have a vision, very, very clear-cut vision of what we wanted in life. And for me, that came from, like I said, being poor and wanting to turn around and become wealthy or financially free. Liz's main driver was freedom, but freedom of time to raise her family, but also being financially free as well. And we also were heavily influenced by people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who you look at his latest book, Be Useful. Yeah, that's what it's called. And everything he always says is it all starts with a vision. And guess what? When I look back over 30 years and answering your question there, I think it all starts with, like Arnie says, having a vision, having what Arnie used to call it a master plan. And I think Liz and I have never wavered. We share the same vision. We refine it together. We talk about it in front of our kids now. They've grown up knowing exactly what mum and dad want, and we talk about business at the kitchen table. We don't, do we take work home? Hell yeah, we work from home. We live and breathe it 24/7. So, and the other thing is we both love it. We both have a shared passion in it. And just another quick aside, and we notice this with a lot of our clients who do start working together. It's interesting, Aaron, because we train so many ex-corporates, they've never worked together, and they always ask, how the hell do you work together? And we go, just do it and see what happens. Share a vision together. That's why, remember how I said, we get people, if they're going to transition, set that 2-year, 3-year, and 5-year vision is so important. But the other thing is we've discovered each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we work with those together. And I've seen that across our community, where if you're listening to this, and like for yourself, sometimes if you want to work together, Liz and I are not exactly the same. We're very similar in our risk profile. We're willing to take high risks. As we get older, we get more conservative, of course. But also that's, there's other parts where we're completely different. She's very extroverted. I used to be very introverted. But over the years, she's taught me how to become more extrovert. That's why I do the podcast. She makes me. Well, she suggests to me that I do. So that's how we help each other. So we play off each other's strengths. Each of us have strengths in businesses, and I've observed that with other couples that work together, especially in our community, who are really successful. They tend to have strengths and weaknesses that they work together as a team on. So I think that's really important. But honestly, coming back to it, I think obviously we must be doing a lot of other stuff. Sometimes you don't even know when you're in it, but I really do think having that shared vision. I know Liz calls it living with intention. She's really big on that, and she tells all our clients too, you got to live with intention, otherwise you're going to become someone else's goal. And I think we've lived with such strong intention. Like we do not pay it lip service. We're very, very serious. Like, you don't want to get in our way if we have a goal. We're going to get there. And
so I learned 3 key things from this question about people wanting to go into business. Have a shared vision with your partner, talk about your strengths and weaknesses, and always be designing your life with intentions.
With intention, yep. And don't let anyone else get in your way. You're doing it together as a team. So you've got to have, we call it Steely-Eyed Determination. You got to have that steely-eyed determination to make it happen, and
Love it.
Look at your life journey in your book and everything. You've got that, right? So you've, and anyone listening to this knows your story. And so that's what, my hat's off to you. That's what it's about. It's that same sort of steely-eyed determination. See, what the challenges you've been through and what you've achieved. Well, Liz and I have been there together. We've gone through lots of challenges, don't worry. We've had plenty. We've nearly been bankrupt multiple times, all that sort of stuff. But because we've got that steely-eyed determination, that intention, it's carried us through. And then it makes us stronger. And not just in business, but in life as well. Like our kids are amazing as well. And everyone around us, we hang out with like-minded people who are amazing individuals, very, very successful. And all of us have been ups and downs, but you get there. We actually get to live the dream. It is pretty mind-blowing, our lives.
Yeah. All good stuff. How do you and Liz resolve conflicts?
Ooh, now that's a good question. We don't have them. Aaron, one of us is always right. So we, seriously, no, we joke. I say Matt's always right, but as we all know, it's always the wife that's right. We talk it out, and it will come back to our vision, and we talk it out. And then if it's we really, really do disagree, we'll give each other space, and then we'll come back to it the next day. And we talk it out, though. We front it up front, though. We don't let it simmer away. We'll sit down with each other and chat it out and say, hey, look, I got an issue with this or whatever, and we need to talk it through. And sometimes you let the dust settle. So this is more relationship advice, I guess. It's not just, but business, just so you know, will exaggerate relationship things. You do need to be careful when you're in business together. It is more challenging because you are together 24/7, and you're raising kids together. Talk about extra stress there when they're young. Our kids are awesome now, but it was tough for us and the kids when they're young as entrepreneurs. When your business is going ballistic, you got to balance all that as well. And I know, probably a lot of your listeners are in the same boat, and you're the same. You've got kids as well. It adds in a lot of extra stress. So yes, conflict resolution is a huge thing. You can't avoid it. You need to sit down together and figure stuff out. And you need to be give and take. You need to be respectful of each other and understand where each other's coming from. And then you've also got to have family goals. It's all well and good to have, business goals but your vision has to include your family. So the cool thing is when do that, it makes it easier to resolve conflicts within the family, because one of our visions was to have an amazing relationship, amazing kids, and a close, tight relationship with all four of us. And so if there is conflict, we figure it out, because it's part of we're living with intention. Because if we don't, we're not living our vision.
Yeah, well said. Hey, Matt, learned a ton from you today. I know we've got another masterclass coming, which Matt and I will be going in depth on some of these topics that we've discussed. But before we wrap up today's conversation, I ask all my guests to ask our audience a self-reflective question. So for the listeners that are listening to this conversation right now, what is that one question, Matt, you would like to encourage them to reflect on?
Easy. Relates to everything I've just said and everything I've said throughout it. If you're listening to this, here's my question to you. What's your personal vision for your life for the next 2, 3, and 5 years? And do you have it written down?
Fantastic. Okay, Matt, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Again, to all the listeners who are listening to this call, hope you learned a lot from Matt's conversation around building online businesses and some of the things to watch out for, and love his analogy, how he compares buying online business to a traditional brick and mortar in the real estate industry. If you're interested, Matt and I will be hosting a masterclass together, and stay tuned for the updates on social media. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Aaron.